It's amazing how we've heard this so many times. We're surrounded by the stations of the cross always. We have crucifixes hanging all over the place in our rooms, throughout our homes. But still, once again today, as we enter into another Good Friday, it's amazing how we see just on full display how evil we can be as humanity. We see just like this tsunami of just awfulness, right? Just all of the wicked things that are happening around Jesus. I mean, the cowardice, the lying, the mockery, the betrayal. This one is a new one for me. For whatever reason, it had never really struck me quite so hard before. But the religious scrupulosity without a true love for God. Think about the fact that they didn't want to enter the praetorium because they didn't want to be defiled because of the Passover. And why were at the praetorium in the first place? Because they were there to kill the Son of God. To not enter into some sort of ritualistic impurity, and yet they were looking to murder an innocent man. I mean, there's so many times just we as fallen humanity, it's like straining out the gnat and swallowing the camel, right? Like making sure we're doing this perfectly by treating people horribly, not following the commandment that God gave us last night at the Last Supper, love one another as I have loved you, but making sure that everything looks perfect on the outside. We see the manipulation, the greed, the cruelty, the indifference, and that pride that rejected the plan of God from the beginning in the garden, that today kills God on the cross in the garden. And it's like just this full tidal wave of all of this evil, right? And yet, we call this day good. Why? Because this is the day that proves that no matter how bad we are, no matter how much we give into evil, no matter how much we reject the plan of God and push away Him that clearly loves us so much, He continues to love us with all of His heart, even beyond His life, right? Even to the point that after death, His side is opened up and blood and water pour out. One of my favorite quotes ever from St. Catherine of Siena, she asked Jesus in her dialogues, "Why did you allow that crazy act of cruelty after your death?" And he said, "I wanted to show you all that I loved you more than I could show you in merely my earthly life. That even beyond death, I wanted to pour out everything for you." And so even in the face of all of that evil that we see on display in the Passion narrative that we just read through, and that we see in the news, that we see in our own lives, and if we're honest with ourselves, when we look in our hearts, that we even see within our hearts, as the great Russian philosopher Alexander Solzhenitsyn said, the line between good and evil runs through every human heart. It is there, and we know it. And yet we call this day good. Why? Because this is the day that we see that even though sin is awful, even though the devil will do everything he can to induce Judas and every one of us to try to turn our back on God, He does not stop loving us. We see today the very depths He'll go to show us He will not abandon His people. That is why we have crucifixes hanging all over. That is why today we will adore the cross, because Him hanging on that cross says, no matter how bad we are, individually or collectively, He will not stop loving us. He opens up the way to salvation. He wants us to experience to the full His absolute love for us. And there is nothing that the devil can throw at Him, that the devil can induce us to throw at Him, that we in our fallenness and selfishness can throw at Him that will make Him stop loving us. As we hear earlier on in John chapter 4, He says that my food is to do the will of my Father. Today we hear Him say, I thirst. That beautiful phrase that's beside every crucifix in every chapel of Mother Teresa's Missionaries of Charity. Why is it there? Because it reminds us that Jesus thirsts for our love. He is here calling us to himself, calling us and showing us the fact that he will not abandon us. No matter how bad it gets, he's stretching out his arms and wants all of us to come into that love. My brothers and sisters in Christ, we see today the great extent to which he will go to show us that he loves us absolutely. The important thing for us in the midst of this Holy Trinity is to ask him once again, Lord, open up my heart. Help me as that line of good and evil runs through the center of me, that I always choose you. You who has always chosen me. You who went all the way to death, even death on a cross, for my sake. Lord, I love you. I know that you love me. Help me never to be parted from you.